Well, good evening. You guys are in for a great program. I want you to know that we're going to record this, so if you don't want to be seen, you could just control that with your camera. And this will be a recorded event that we will make available after the program. My name's Paul, and I'm the Director of Online Learning for G4V, and we, along with Challenge America, are sponsoring tonight's event. And I'm really excited to join all of you for our first installment. I'm being a little optimistic here, but our first installment of Guitars for Growth. It's an event tonight that we will explore the healing power of the arts as a pathway to post-traumatic growth. 2 years ago, G4V forged a partnership with Challenge America, and we established the Guitars4Growth Learning Center within the CAVARTS community. And while we are all about guitars, we are also about the healing power of music. What do we mean when we talk about the healing power of music? Healing from what? And what is post-traumatic growth? A lot of us are very familiar with post-traumatic stress, but not so sure about post-traumatic growth. Well, tonight we will explore these very questions and maybe even look at how a guitar could save a life. So for over 37 years before I joined Guitars4Vets, I worked in the addictions treatment field, and I see a lot of similarities in the recovery from addiction and growth from trauma. For example, we would teach in the addictions field that addiction, like trauma, affects everyone differently. And we'd also teach that regardless of the type of drug, the amount of the drug, or how long a person has been taking the drug, you in fact can recover. And it's a hopeful message that we were trying to give to people. And again, like trauma, regardless of the amount, type, and duration of the trauma experienced, a person can grow. And there's many pathways in both of these fields for recovery and growth, and tonight we're going to explore a couple of them related to arts and music. So tonight you will hear from a few of our fellow veterans who know not only what trauma is, but have been, in some cases, pioneers in our understanding of post-traumatic growth. Our format for tonight will be this. You will meet Joe Wood, who's an executive with Boulder, Crest, an amazing nonprofit doing a lot with post-traumatic growth that you'll hear about in just a minute. You'll also meet Malachias Gaskin, a singer, a songwriter, an author, and he's going to, both he and Joe will tell us a little bit about their backstories and some of the pathways that they have used for growth. Then you're going to meet Nigel Fisher, who's the Director of Advancement for Guitars4Vets, and he's going to tell us a bit about his own journey and introduce us to a brief video titled How a Guitar Can Save a Life, underscoring again the healing power of music. Then Joe, Malachias, and Nigel will engage in a conversation that answers things like what has worked in their own journeys, in their own pathway to growth. Then we will introduce to you our own Challenge America's own board-certified guitar playing music therapist who will share some of her observations about music and growth, as well as maybe get us to pick up the guitar and learn how to use the instrument to more in a purposely therapeutic way, I guess is one way to say it. Then this is a 90-minute, so we're going to end about 20 after. We're going to open it up for questions and reactions from you. If you have questions about the journeys you've heard, or if you want to tell us a little about your own journey, that would be awesome. And then we'd like to close out the show with Malachias performing a live song for us. Again, we've kind of designed this in a way to really underscore what we believe is the healing power of music. So before I ask Joe to take it away, I just wanted to say a word about Challenge America. Our mission with Guitars4Vets and Challenge America are very, very similar. It's been a great partnership. Challenge America's mission is to leverage technology and the creative arts to improve the lives of veterans and their families. And they are doing just that with Challenge America Veterans Arts Community, what we call CAVARTS. That's our virtual community where we have our guitar store, if you will. CAVARTS was created by veterans, for veterans, to be a community that supports one another as they connect, learn, and grow through the arts. Finally, I just want to give a quick shout out to one of my colleagues, Tom Lamog, who will be helping us manage tonight's Zoom meeting. In addition to being an awesome Guitars for Vets instructor, Tom's created some veteran-specific content for CAVARTS community and the Guitars for Vets community, including the iJam series, where you can jam along virtually with a preset set list and with Tom, and the Song Sung True series, which introduces singer-songwriter warriors and their stories to us. And in fact, that's how I first met Malachias, one of the guests that you're going to meet tonight. So, Mr. Wood, if you would be willing to kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and your story.
Absolutely. Thanks, Paul. And thanks for allowing us to be here and allowing me to be a part of this community. For everybody's awareness, I just graduated from Guitars for Vets this past weekend. It was an absolutely amazing journey. So today actually is the second annual Post-Traumatic Growth Awareness Day. Still a little frustrating that post-traumatic stress gets an entire month and we get a day, but it's been 10 years in the making and it's happened and we're super excited about it. I've traveled all around the country and trained a lot of people. Boulder Crest has trained over 100,000 first responders, military, and veterans over the last 10 years. And, you know, we always ask the question, who's heard of post-traumatic stress? Well, everybody in this community has heard of post-traumatic stress. Vast majority of us have some level of it. And almost nobody has heard the term post-traumatic growth, which is quite frustrating for us. Considering we know that it's a thing that actually happens. And I can tell you from personal experience, because about 8 years ago, I tried to end my life for the third time. And while not diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, I can absolutely relate it to stressful events that have happened in my life, traumatic events. And for us, we define a traumatic event as something that creates an earthquake to your core belief system. As you're growing up, you learn things about yourself, other people in the world, and whether true or not, if you believe it, it becomes true in your life. And the vast majority of us try to regulate through self-medication. We do the things that we know that work. So if our intent is to reduce the symptoms, if our intent is to feel less bad, and we try something that works to reduce that pain, then we're going to continue to do it. And the truth is, you don't have to self-medicate in order to feel better. Self-regulation is what we promote. And a lot of us are just scared to do these self-regulation things. Guitar playing is one great example, or music in general, which we'll talk a little bit about later. So about 8 years ago, I tried to end my life again and failed, fortunately. And I found my way to Boulder Crest, where I learned about post-traumatic growth. I went through the Warrior Path program and absolutely changed my life. And then I saved my life after that because I adopted these regulation practices to create the life that I know that I should be living and that I deserve to live. And that's what we do in our programs is we teach combat vets and first responders how to create a life worth living, because we believe that that's the opposite of suicide. So we do that through our Warrior Path program. We do it through a Struggle Well program. We wrote a book called Struggle Well, Thriving in the Aftermath of Trauma. And it's all based off of research by Dr. Rich Tedeschi, who in 1995, he and his partner, Dr. Lawrence Calhoun, published a paper in the APA as they were studying where wisdom comes from. They discovered that people who have experienced really hard things tend to grow in 5 different areas. And I'd be remiss if I had spent any time with anybody and didn't actually do a little education. So I'm going to talk about what those 5 areas are and what the process looks like, because it's available to everybody. One of those areas is new possibilities. You experience something really hard, it changes something in your life, and there are new possibilities available to you because of your current situation, because of the thing that you went through. You all have experienced, no doubt, many of these, if not all of them. The next one for sure, deeper relationships. When you have an experience that's hard, we know human beings require connection with other people, and you're able to grow through deeper relationships when you talk about the things that you went through. The next would be appreciation for life. You experience something, perhaps it's the death of a family member or whatever it is, and you start to appreciate more the life that you have because that person doesn't get to live one. The next is personal strength. And it's not necessarily that these experiences give you more personal strength. That just develops every day. It's that you have these hard experiences and you start to recognize just how strong you are, that you've made it through all of your worst days. And it's kind of a confidence boost to get through the next set of experiences, struggles, traumas. And the last is spiritual and existential change. And we're not a religious organization, but that could mean religion for some people. What for us, spirit is connection, being of service, and what in your character. Are you living up to your character? Are you congruent in the way you think, feel, and act? And this spiritual and existential change is really, because I experienced this, I get to learn more about who I am, what I'm about, whether or not I'm living up to my core values and my character, whether or not I'm being of service to other people, because we all want to be of service. We all want to help other people. So those are 5 kind of common areas where most people grow after they experience hard things. The process is really not that challenging. It's just a lot of hard work. To start, and it's an iterative process, these all happen at the same time. It's really hard to do if you don't have an environment of trust and connection. You got to have 3 to 5 people in your life that you trust, that you're connected to, that want to lift you up and hold you up and cheer you on and things like that. And when you have that, you can start to explore. So the first phase of post-traumatic growth is education, where you read books and you listen to podcasts and you have conversations with people who've experienced the things that you've experienced, and you talk to mentors, and you try to learn about yourself, other people in the world. The second phase of the process is regulation. We have to learn how to self-regulate. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. I meditate. I do a gratitude practice every morning, a little bit of exercise. I try to eat well. I try to take care of my mind, body, finance, and spirit. The third phase is disclosure. You have to talk about the hard things that have happened in your life, because when you do, a lot of really cool things happen. One is you realize you're not alone. That I tell a story about my life and somebody says, "Oh my God, I thought I was the only one that experienced it that way." And you start to realize other people have, in fact, experienced some of the same things that you have. But you also get to process these things in real time with somebody that you trust and connect with, and you talk about a story. Sometimes you use a word that's probably the right word, but it's not the word that you use when you're in your head. And when you say it out loud, you start to realize, I was blaming this person, but it wasn't really this person's fault. Or I've been lying to myself for however long. Those kind of realizations happen. And you got to talk about childhood experiences. The vast majority of military folks and first responders have more adverse childhood experiences than your average civilian does. But everybody's got some adverse childhood experiences. You got to talk about guilt and shame, and you got to talk about grief and loss. The next phase is story, which is not the old story. That's disclosure. It's writing a new story. We have to come up with, we have to understand who we are, what our character is about, what we care about, what our values are, and then start to write a new story. And the last phase of it is being of service. Take the things that you've learned and go share them with other people. And I'll just throw out one quick definition. The way that Boulder Crest defines, well, I'll do 2, a warrior and a hero. To us, a warrior is a protector, somebody who's insistent on serving a cause greater than themselves, and somebody who's not a victim of circumstance or a product of their environment. And we're all victimized at some point in our lives. The question is whether or not we choose to live in victimhood. A hero to us is an ordinary person who endures an extraordinary experience and returns to share important truths that they learned about life so they can enrich the lives of others. And if you think about during medieval times, the knight goes in and slays the dragon and collects up the treasure and the virgin princess or whatever it is that the dragon's been hoarding. They wouldn't be a hero if that's all they did and they chose to live in the cave. They're only a hero because they bring that treasure back to the community and give it to others. So that is the fastest lesson on post-traumatic growth I've ever given. Thanks for making that so easy for me. Our programs are completely free. We're a nonprofit. Our programs are free to anybody that goes to them. Any combat veteran can go through Warrior Path. You don't have to have a diagnosis. You just have to recognize that you're kind of stuck in life and you're looking for some help to achieve and exercise this post-traumatic growth process and live the life that you deserve. Because the truth is, A lot of us believe that the reward for our service is to be broken and to live kind of a diminished life. And that's what the system, I'm not talking about the providers in the system. The system itself is designed to help you reduce symptoms, to help you cope with the things that you have to deal with. It's not designed to help you thrive. And therapy is great. And there are other things that you can do to help you get to thriving. The system is designed to help you reduce symptoms. And that's just, if you know that it's possible to grow from your experiences, why wouldn't you choose to follow that process? Our Struggle Well program is really designed from a preventative perspective to help organizations change their culture so that when people separate from their service, they're not leaving feeling like broken is what they have to do for the rest of their lives. So that's what Boulder Crest is all about. Today is Post-Traumatic Growth Awareness Day. I would encourage you to go out and do some queries on social media about post-traumatic growth and maybe share those things so other people know that post-traumatic stress doesn't have to be the end of the story. It's not a one or the other. Post-traumatic stress happens, and the question is whether or not you can grow from it. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Malachias, who I'm very excited.
Joe, thank you for that. I wrote, well, I'll get to that. My name is Malachias. I'm a 17-year Army veteran. I did 2 tours in Iraq. I grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, from birth to 30 years old. And I grew up with the family where I found out at 13 I was adopted by my mother. My father was my father, but my mother adopted me. And I found out from a random phone call from my birth mother, who literally, I answered the phone and I said hello, and she said, "Hey, I'm your mom." And that was a whole weird, crazy thing that happened. And then, 19 years old, I meet her and wishing that I never had. I ended up getting married at 20 years old, having a kid, getting divorced, joining the Indiana Army National Guard. Ended up doing 9 years in the Indiana Army National Guard, 2 years as a medic, 7 years as an infantryman. And I made it all the way up to E7. I was a platoon sergeant in the National Guard, got out. And then, all this time I'm running a family business with my father and my family. And then my father passed away. And when he passed away, the banks came in and just closed us down and took everything. So I ended up homeless with a wife and 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl, to the point where we were sleeping, at friends' spare bedrooms. We were sleeping on my mom's floor, things like that. And so I looked at my wife one day and I was like, I said, I know 3 things in life, landscaping, music, and the military. And I don't want to landscape for anybody ever again. And music isn't paying at the time, music's not paying the bills. And so I went back in the Army, ended up at Fort Stewart, Georgia, where I did the fast train to Iraq, did 15 months on the surge from 2007 to 2008, came home, went back from 2009 to 2010 for 13 months, came home, started going to therapy. Because something wasn't right. I was treating my kids like crap. I was screaming and yelling at my wife all the time. I didn't know where it was all coming from and what to do with it. And after about 2 years of going to therapy on post with a social worker, I came in one day and I was like, look, I'm on all these meds. Like, all these things are happening. I don't know what's going on in my life. I come in every week and I pour my heart out. And I tell you all the things that I'm not comfortable telling my family because I don't want to see the looks on their face when I tell them the things that I did in combat. Like, what am I supposed to do? Help me. And my therapist, who was a social worker, looked me square in the eyes and said, I don't know, get a dog, start a garden. Said it just like that. And so I stood up in my moment of trauma and flipped my chair and yelled at her and cussed her out and went home and told my wife, hey, my therapist said get a dog. And she said, you're not getting a dog. And I have 2 dogs now, by the way. And then she said, what else did your therapist say? And she said, start a garden. And so she's like, well, get in the van, let's go. And we ran to Lowe's that night and we bought all the stuff we needed to build a 4-foot by 4-foot raised bed garden in our backyard on post. And started building gardens for other service members on post. And then the next thing you know, here I am, retiring from the Army, writing a book while I'm retiring. And I wrote the book out of spite because I was supposed to be filming a documentary on music and its therapeutic modality for trauma recovery. And at the last minute, the Army said, no, you can't do a documentary because you're in a med board and you can't do both. And so my buddy was like, just write a book then. So I wrote a book out of spite because I didn't think anybody was going to read it. And the book was called A Warrior's Garden. And it was about using specific things, and it created this set of pillars that I use, that I kind of set up a modality of growth. Instead of focusing on trauma, I started focusing on what am I doing to outgrow my trauma. And this is back in 2012, 2013 when I wrote it. But these three pillars that were created were my faith, my music, and my gardening. These are the three main things. And then I realized that it's not the same for everyone, right? So these pillars became no longer faith, music, gardening, but became spiritual, creative, and physical. And I started figuring out that if I can combine them, right, I can start putting them together in groups and in subgroups, right? So for me, like my three pillars is my faith, because I'm a Messianic Jewish, so I believe in God. Some people don't. Some people are Wiccan or pagan or, atheist or agnostic or whatever, but there's some kind of connection that you have to your environment or to your friend group or to something that is bigger than who you are. And that's what we find as kind of deem as the spiritual part. And then creative, right? Because not everybody wants to play music. Not everybody thinks they can, right? It's self-defeating sometimes. You're just like, I can't play guitar, so I'm just not gonna. I told myself that for 25, 30 years, I can't play. And now I'm playing every week. But so what ends up happening is, what is your creative outlet, right? Some people, it's something simple like, I like creating lists for everything that I do, right? Or I like to draw, or I like to, I write poetry or whatever. And then your physical, like everybody has a physical thing. Like if I came to your house or someone came to your house every single day and said, let's do this one thing that gets you off the couch and out of your house every single day, you would do it, right? That's your physical thing. For me, that physical thing would be go out and gardening, either doing the gardening, planting the gardening, or teaching somebody the gardening, right? So, and I'm not flowers, but produce. Of course, there's nothing wrong with flowers, but produce is what I like to work with and what I like to teach. And so I find people, and we go, we figure out what their creative part is. We figure out what their, if we figure out what their creative part is, what their spiritual part is, what their physical part is, and then we go, how do we combine them? Because your spiritual part is like kind of at the top of, like I call it a coping pyramid, right? And so at the top of your coping pyramid is your spiritual, because that's the piece that's that's your solid piece. That's not going to change, right? Now your base of your pyramid, which is your physical and your creative, those can change, they can grow, you can add stuff to it. You can do multiple creative things, you can do multiple physical things. So then we teach them how to take those and combine them into groups, right? So you have your spiritual, your creative, your physical, and then we have your spiritual connected to your physical, your spiritual creative connected to your creative, and your creative connected to your physical, or connecting all three at once. So we find a way to do it to where we have 7 individual sets, right? You have 1, 2, and 3, which is spiritual, creative, physical, and then you have 4, which is spiritual with creative, and then you have 5, which is spiritual with physical, and then you have 6, which is creative with physical. And I know I'm giving you a lot right now. It's like force feeding with a fire hose. And then you have 7 where you connect them all, right? Well, now you have 7 individual sets of little coping mechanisms that you can engage intentionally on a daily basis. And these are your pillars. These are the things that are going to make your house stronger, right? The wider your base on a pyramid, the stronger the pyramid is, right? So the more different things that you have that are physical that get you out of the house, whether it's weightlifting, biking, gardening, martial arts, whatever that is, and then your creative stuff, which is like, drawing, painting, music, whatever that is, right? The wider you can make that pyramid base, the stronger that is, the sturdier your pillars will be to hold up the walls and the ceiling within your house, right? But then I realized with all of this, like, I never went through the actions of trying to, take my own life. But I struggled with the thoughts on a daily basis for a very, very, very long time. And they still kind of come in fleeting today, even today, right? But I was blessed to meet a guy named Boone Cutler, who wrote a thing called the Spartan Pledge. And the Spartan Pledge is a suicide prevention modality that veterans, it was written by veterans for veterans, right? And what we do is it's an oath that we take with each other. And whenever I play a show, whenever I do a speaking engagement for veterans, any of the things that I do, any VSO thing, like if I go to the VFW, the American Legion or whatever, I talk about the Spartan Pledge with them. But the Spartan Pledge is literally, it's 2 sentences, and it's just a promise. I will not take my own life by my own hand until I talk to my battle buddy first. My mission is to find a mission and support my warfighter family. So that first sentence, I will not take my own life by my own hand until I talk to my battle buddy first. So the first thing we're doing is acknowledging that I'm going to reach out for help, but we're also acknowledging that we, as an individual, like if I'm the guy that you're reaching out to, can't save everybody. It doesn't mean I don't try and give it 110%, right? But I can't save everybody. And I have to acknowledge that, okay? But you're promising me that you're going to give me the opportunity to talk you off that ledge and to kind of get you to someone who might help, right? So I will not take my own life by my own hand until I talk to my battle buddy first, right? My mission is to find a mission and support my warfighter family. So then that second sentence is, because we also have to understand that as a person in struggle who struggles with it, not everybody can answer the phone every time I call, right? And so I'm going to call you. If you don't answer, I'm going to wait for you to get back to me. But then while I'm waiting, I'm going to go out and find somebody else that I can do something to bless them or help them or do something for them. Because we've also found that a lot of times acts of service to bless or take care or help somebody else, a lot of times can reduce that tension from what we're going through with the suicidal ideation. And so I'm really big about pushing the Spartan Pledge on my battle buddies, on all my friends and family. And it's really based on, again, it's just a promise, because we as veterans and as service members, you know, we live our life and our service by oaths, right? I will uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, right? I'm taking an oath to do that. And then when I get out, a lot of times what happens is we lose that connection to something bigger than who we are. And so at that point, it's like, I'm taking another oath, right? I'm not going to take my life. I'm going to reach out and ask for help. You know what I mean? So that really turned into, like I said, we built the garden, we created the pillars. So then we ended up creating a nonprofit called A Warrior's Garden, or Warfighter Gardens, where we build therapy gardens for veterans and first responders. Because my whole thing is, like, the healing doesn't start sitting on the couch. It really doesn't. The healing starts when you get up and get active and do something about it. Back in 2012, 2013, when I was writing my book, it was really, really hard to find anything that had anything to do with growth from trauma. Everything was so about PTSD, PTS, you know what I mean? And to me, I could care less if you have the D on the end or not. It's all trauma. We've all been through trauma, right? Whether it's childhood trauma, whether it's military trauma, whatever it is. It's what are we doing with it? Are we just sitting there in our suck, having a horrible day on a regular basis? Or are we getting up and actively doing something to grow from it? Because the trauma actually can make us better. I know that's crazy to hear, right? But the trauma that we've been through can actually make us better, because our reactions can be better, our thoughts can be better, our movements can be better. Everything we do can be better based off of the fact that we've been through trauma, because now we know how to overcome something adverse. I'm a big believer in you're not stuck in your trauma. You're only stuck there if you stay there. And that you're only staying there if you stay on the couch, right? And so what we do with the Warriors Garden is our job is to get you off the couch, get you out in the air, get you out into the sunlight, get you out into doing things, and get you to grow instead of just sitting there, because growing doesn't start on the couch. Growing starts in the soil, or starts out in the open air. And with that, I think I'm going to pass this on to, I believe, Nigel.
Good evening, everyone. Such an honor to be here with you all, and thanks so much, Malachias, for sharing your personal perspective. Something that I'd like to do for a moment is get ready to take a look at, can a guitar save a life? Because that's really what we're going to be talking about more this evening. So we'll go ahead and take 5 minutes, and we'll be able to watch this video.
It's been a while, but I still remember all of you. I remember those nights just like they were yesterday. I stubbed my boots, the gear. It's like I'm still ready to go. I think of you often, and I miss those days. Sometimes I don't. I don't know who I am anymore. So sometimes I think I kind of run away. I don't know. It's just hard. People are always trying to help. I think they mean well. I always thank you for your service, but sometimes just can't seem to figure it out. But there's things that are important. I don't know, maybe it takes just taking that first step. Taking that first phone call. Taking the chance. No matter how awkward it feels, brothers and sisters are out there inviting us in. All you gotta do is say, okay. It might be closer than you think. I took a chance.
I have found that most of the veterans that are students in this program come away with a whole new level of serenity and, kind of a feeling of purpose.
I mean, who knew that a simple wooden box with some metal strings might be the connection point that I needed. Might forge the relationships that I was actually looking for. Might bring joy and peace. Who knew that music could heal and bring connection? I gotta be honest, I was scared at first. It may not make sense given what I've been through, but I found a new team, a new unit, all through music, and it has meant everything. When I graduated, in front of my buddies, cheering along, Guitars4Vets handed me that guitar. It was pride like I remembered. And who knew that today I'd be a part of my community, playing the guitar in front of those same buddies. In front of my kids, my wife, connecting with my family again, part of a tribe, part of a unit again. I'm so thankful. For me, it's time that I help the next guy or gal come on in to the fold. We've all got to watch out for each other. We are the ones that can use music to heal each other. Because it's more about the guitar. It's about community and belonging. There is a way forward.
All right, welcome back, and thanks for taking the time to watch that video with us. And the reason why I wanted to start with the video before I introduce myself is because vast elements of what you just watched are my story. So I'm Nigel Fisher. I'm the National Director of Advancement at Guitars4Vets, but I'm also a student. I'm also going through my own post-traumatic growth journey, and it looks an awful lot like what we saw in the video. There were moments throughout my career that were extremely troubling for me. I was wounded in combat in 2007. And the biggest toll that took on me, that I struggled with and refused to admit for a long time, was the feelings of guilt that I had from those that didn't come home. And there was a significant period of time while I was being feeling like suffocated daily because of my physical wounds, but also the neurological effects of what I had gone through. And just this lasting cycle of medical appointments that didn't seem to get me any further down the line. And it was very troubling. And I spent a lot of time trying to fix those things in that moment. And then I decided to just put them on the shelf. I decided to put them away. And it was a good time to lie to myself about where I stood. And I just didn't want to address it at the moment. Thankfully, for that moment, my career in the Marine Corps prepared me well for being able to separate how I was doing in the moment from what I needed to do in that moment. And so as I continued the rest of my career, I focused very much on filling each day with so many things that I kept myself busy so that I didn't have to think about all these things that were still sitting on the shelf beside me that I knew were there. I could see them staring at me, burning holes into the side of my head, staring at me every day. But it was convenient to be so busy that I didn't have time to address those things. And then I retired and I thought, wow, this is great. I'm going to continue to pursue the same line of work in retirement. And part of it, selfishly, was very much that I would be so busy, once again, with very important things, that I would be able to continue to ignore those things sitting next to me on the shelf. And then I left that life of service to our country and I decided to go into business. And I worked at Amazon for 4 years as an executive leader. No doubt a very fast pace, very different in the context of the fast pace and demands in that career. I was once again able to deprioritize myself and feel pretty good about it for the moment. And then my mom passed away, and she was very dear to me because she was in law enforcement my entire childhood and raised me as a single mom. And my dad served in law enforcement, my stepmother in law enforcement. So I came from a childhood of service and sacrifice. So it was very normal to focus on what must be done rather than what truly must be done. And it was very convenient to be able to continue to fill my life with activity that didn't make room for me to be able to just focus on myself. Now, I say all of this in a very self-focused way now because before it was, I don't want to let my team down. I don't want to let my family down. And I realized as I emerged from the mourning of my mother's passing that there was a lot of hurt inside of me. And it wasn't just from that very monumental moment of losing my mom, but it went back to all of this mountain of emotion and pain and stress that had continued to mount until it's falling on top of me and there's nothing to do but acknowledge it. And I'm very thankful that through the course of doing that, it reoriented me on what I had partaken of at bits and pieces and moments along that journey over the course of years, over a decade, of some very healthy behaviors to begin to manage how I was feeling on the side of ignoring, but knowing that I had to do something to make even the ignoring sustainable for that period of time. But then once the floodgates opened wide, I realized that I am being selfish by not focusing on these issues and addressing these issues. Fortunately for me, at the very same moment, Guitars4Vets was coming into my life. And while I was not at the depths of despair, I was at a moment where I'm acknowledging that I have some things I need to work on that are not, I am not allowing them to be removed, and I am not allowing myself to perform at my best and thrive, as Joe mentioned earlier. So I was surviving, I was getting by, but I wasn't truly embarking on thriving in the fullest like I can now. So it wasn't just Guitars4Vets. My wife had very keenly discovered kayaking, and the two of us, both as veterans, embarked on learning a new skill, something we had never done before, and that was very therapeutic. So I really enjoyed getting to learn the guitar because I had always wanted to. So it was very exciting to me. And right at the same time, I was offered a role on our national staff at Guitars4Vets. And I thought, what better way to continue serving, but in a more meaningful and impactful way where I can continue to focus on my own growth and share that message for those that are earlier in the phases of growth, where maybe I've walked a couple more miles than they have, and I can share that perspective, and also the amazing perspective gained by great folks on this call tonight that have seen these things in action for far greater time than I have, as they've provided lessons and walked their own journey. And I learned from folks like Joe and Malachias in conversation, and this organization, the Guitar, has brought us all together. So to me, when we ask the question, how can a guitar save a life? It can break down those stigmas, those walls, and it opens us up to new friendships, connections, and the ability to feel like we are ready, that we are worth growing. And then we begin the real journey. And it's a lot of fun. And I'm not there yet. And it is painful at times, but I'm so thankful for having the guitar and being able to go to this guy anytime I want during the day, and to be able to connect with the great folks like you all on this call tonight and be able to share my story, to be able to share that pride of having learned something new and the endless life discovery of continuing to learn new songs and play together with others and share that same joy. Because in that moment in the video at the graduation, I felt something like I had felt rarely before in my life when I graduated, and it truly was joy. Lots of accolades, awards, achievements over the course of 30 plus years as an organizational leader prior to where I stand now. And that moment when I had accepted what my position was, where I was at, and I chose to then make that forward progress by learning and growing. I was immensely proud of that. And that graduation, having learned over the course of 10 weeks and receiving that guitar, it wasn't about the guitar. It was about, I knew I was on the right path to continue this lifelong growth of healing. So I share that with you all tonight. I look forward to the conversation we're going to get into, because I know that I've seen some of the facial expressions, and I think that we have a lot of exciting aspects of this that we can draw out further, and hopefully we can respond to any questions from those that are participating tonight in the audience and help answer what does that look like, or how did you do that? I think all three of us would be very happy to share those answers.
Great. Thanks, Nigel. Appreciate that. Tom, if you wouldn't mind spotlighting our panel. In the chat, Tom's also put some of the connections for Boulder, Crest, where Joe is from, and Warrior's Garden as well, and I believe a link to the video. We've talked a little bit about, I've heard a lot in your stories about things that you have done on your own personal journeys that have helped with growth. Kayaking, gardening, music. It's not surprising that all of you are Guitars4Vets graduates, which is awesome. But say if there, I'll just throw this out to the full group. Say a little bit more, if you can, about other kind of things that you have done in your own personal growth in terms of what has worked for you.
Yeah, I think for me in particular, a very deliberate and mindful approach to, if I want everything about myself to be positive, then I need to put positive things in, because those are the pieces that are required to make me what I am. So if I put in garbage, whether that be what I listen to, what I look at, what I eat, how I spend my time, the people that I associate with, and not to say that I just all of a sudden upended my life and cut every human being out and completely turned my pantry upside down, but I was already on that path of wanting to surround myself with positive things. Now I'm just a lot more intentional and mindful about how I go about living each and every day with those inputs. And I would imagine it's along the same lines as what Malachi shared, with that spiritual connection with produce, because I heard you say that, Malachias, like about produce in particular. And I know growing my own herbs in my raised bed garden in the back and then using them as sustenance for the family and preparing meals. There's just something very gratifying about that because you're connected very deeply because you've nurtured and you've grown and you've cared for this plant. So you appreciate it so very much then. And when it translates into a delightful meal, what couldn't be better, right? It's just a really neat thing, just in and of itself pure. But when you take that time and you're so focused on something beautiful, I think it really elevates your thoughts beyond some of the darker things that we've experienced. And it reminds you of how much good there is all around you every day. And then you begin to notice those great things and seek them out more and more. And they're all beautiful, positive, very pleasant things to share with others. So I don't want to monopolize that thought, but yeah, it's a great connection.
So Nigel stole my answer. No, like I really, so, and I look at it from, because, and a lot of us are going to look at it from different angles, right? But I look at it coming from, the combat veteran side of it, where it's like I was a door kicker, I was a medic, I was a guy going in doing both jobs at the same time, right? So I was kicking in doors, I was getting shot at, shooting at people, treating my wounded, all those kinds of things. And so when I came home, I was like, all these things are so right here. I need something, I got to find something new, right? Because I can't have all this negative stuff. And so when I started the gardening, I started realizing, I started to realize, because I was self-searching, but it really, like you said, it's about intentionality, right? So I started doing this searching while I was in the garden, finding that as I nurtured the plant from seed all the way to produce to providing more seed, right? Like for example, like with okra, I overgrew okra that ended up going to seed, and I ended up producing my own seed. So I'm eating the plant, I'm eating the seed, I'm eating the leaf, because you can eat okra leaf too. And then I'm having seed at the end of the season. You save your last 10% and you let it overgrow and overproduce to seed, so that now I don't have to buy seed anymore, right? So I became part of a complete life cycle, right? That wasn't a negative thing, right? It was a positive thing, because you can go to war and you can see all the death and the destruction and all the things, but then you come home, and how do you replace that? It's really what it's about. We got to find ways to replace the negativity. And I found, for me, again, I'm speaking for me, I found that when I can be a part of a life cycle in a positive way, in a beneficial way, from, again, seed to seed, right? From end to end, 360, all the way around. I'm feeding my family. I know where it's coming from. I know that there's no chemicals, pesticides, any of the stuff that I don't want in it. I know where it's been. And then I get to watch my family eat it. You know what I mean? And then I get to be a part of the entire process, cultivating it, growing it, harvesting it, every bit of it. You know what I mean? And so I get to be a part of that positive growth life cycle, instead of that focusing on, but again, it's intentionality, right? So I'm not focusing on all that negative stuff anymore. So, but yeah, Nigel stole my answer. So,
you both stole my answer. So, well, I find that when I'm struggling the most, and by the way, everybody struggles and will always struggle. Like, you're never going to find yourself in a place where you'll never struggle again. So if we recognize that, when you're giving yourself a pat on the back for doing well, recognize you're going to do poorly at some point, and you got to find ways to prepare yourself for that. And so when I'm struggling the most, I find that isolation is my go-to. I want to be alone. I'm an introvert. I get my energy by being alone. But isolation is the antithesis of connection, and connection is the key to joy and satisfaction in life. There's a study out of Harvard called the Gluck study. It's been going on for 80 years. It's continuing. And they've found consistently the key to joy and satisfaction is connection with others. And so when I isolate, I recognize that I'm not doing the right thing. So I try to do the opposite and connect with other people. Well, if you're not good at connecting with other people, oftentimes it's because you can't connect with yourself. And this is why I love the guitar. This is why I love music. This is why I love all things in the creation and creativity space, because I find myself most happy when I'm alone, when I'm creating something. And that could be writing in my journal or writing a book. I'm actively writing 5 books right now. I haven't resolved that trauma that I have where I give up on things. So I almost finish and I give up and I move on to the next book. But I find that when I'm alone, I want to be creating. what I love about Guitars for Vets is in 10 weeks, I now have the ability to create a song, which I did a couple of days ago. And it was just this great feeling that something was produced out of me feeling me, right? Me strumming a guitar and feeling it and creating something beautiful out of it. It doesn't matter if it's beautiful for other people, it's beautiful for me. Music specifically has been really powerful for me. There are songs that I can hear and they take me back to moments of joy. There are also songs that I hear that take me to a really dark place. And to Nigel's point, we get to choose what we consume. If you know that a certain food is bad for you, don't eat it. If you know that certain songs are going to put you in a bad mood and you don't want to be in that bad mood. By the way, there's a lot of value in putting yourself in a bad mood if you do it with intention so that you can try to understand why those things bother you. That's a very important practice. On this idea of positivity, every morning when I wake up, I do a gratitude practice and I think of 3 things that I'm grateful for. And when I first started, I couldn't come up with anything. So it was like, I'm grateful that I woke up. I'm grateful that I have fresh coffee. And I'm grateful that I wasn't sleeping in the dirt, right? You come up with, silly examples like that. But over time, you start to become grateful. You just have to remind yourself that there's things to be grateful for. And again, scientifically proven, if you do gratitude for 7 days, you get 21 days of more positive thinking. You do it for 21 days, you get 6 months of more positive thinking. So if you know that something positive can come out of an action, why would you not do the action? And so the one major message I want to get out is like creativity is really important for us. It helps us to build confidence in ourselves. It helps us to find joy. Joy is something that is very fleeting. But if we know that we can do something and joy is created, why would you not do it? And just find a way to feed yourself with the really good things in life. Gratitude, connection with other people, creating things. And you have to learn to connect with yourself. And what's great about learning the guitar is you spend, I don't know if you guys had to do this, but Paul made me practice for 7 hours a day. Just kidding. 6. But I practiced a lot and I spent a lot of time by myself strumming a guitar and I actually bled in my fingers and it was miserable. But at the same time, I got to learn some things about myself. I got to overcome some fear of failure, some embarrassment. I got to overcome the quitter inside of me and all of those things. And it's all just really good for you. And the thing is, you don't solve this problem and then never have to work on it again. It's a lifelong journey of constantly working on yourself and constantly connecting with other people.
Joe, I do want to say I appreciate that you're thinking of playing your song for us tonight. And you told me the title of it is The Greatest Guitars for Vets Teacher Ever, is the name of your song. So, hey, I'm going to go, if you guys let me, I'm going to go a little bit off script. The second Spartan pledge about my mission is to find a mission.
Yeah.
I guess to me, that means purpose. If I have a mission, I've got purpose.
Exactly.
How do you help someone who feels like they can't even answer that question? If they can't say my mission is, and they can't fill that in, is that, how do you, because then the growth journey doesn't seem like it can really start. So how do you help someone find their mission?
You start with just asking a lot of questions, a lot of inane, just boring, daily, everyday questions, right? Like, what do you do? What was it before your trauma? What was the one thing that gave you joy? Right? Let's do it again. Okay. Have you tried music therapy? Have you tried art therapy? Have you tried equine therapy? Have you tried animal therapy? Have you tried all these different types of therapy? Yep, I've done them all. Okay, do them again. And you do them again, and you do them again, and you do it with them. You know what I mean? I'm willing to walk side by side with you. That's the whole purpose of the Spartan Pledge, is it creates connection, right? And so I'm going to do it with you, right? Or your battle buddy's going to do it with you. So every branch has their battle drills, right? We all have in the absence of knowledge or understanding of what to do in a situation, you do this, right? So when you don't know how to react to enemy contact, you go by the basic battle drill, right? You return fire. You call it distance and direction, right? So you have battle drills. The Spartan Pledge is your suicide prevention battle drill, right? So when you don't know what to do, when you're in that moment of like, I have no connection, I have no friends, I have no anything, then you pick up the phone and you call someone that you used to know. You call someone you used to serve with. You go to your local VFW, you go to your local American Legion, you go to your local veteran service office, right? And just go, hey, look, I'm struggling mentally right now. I just need someone to hang out with, right? Because that's the purpose of the Spartan Pledge, is to help. You're agreeing to make connection, right? And so when someone doesn't know, like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what my creative thing is. Well, let's figure it out, man. Let's sign you up for Guitars for Vets, right? Let's get you your 10 lessons and see how it goes. Okay. Did it work? Did it help? Are you down, or you want to play guitar now? No, I don't. It was great. It was awesome. I love the fact that I got a guitar and I met some people, but it's just not for me. All right, let's get you involved in a master gardener class. Let's get you involved in a painting class. Let's get you involved in yoga. Let's get you involved in one thing after another, right? And then you get to a point where it's like, look, I feel like I've done everything and it's still not helping. Do it again. Start over from the very top and do it again. Because what you're doing at that point is you're creating a new neural network, right? You're rewiring the brain in a way that it starts to reprocess and relearn and redo all of these things, right? And then all of a sudden, eventually, as you're going, and I had to do it myself, and it was like my third time through a list when finally something clicked, and I go, oh, hey, this is helping, right? But again, it takes intentionality, because there's times that you'll be doing it, but you're just doing it because it's like you're going through the motion, because you're supposed to be doing it, right? And when you wear that off and you take that barrier down and you go, you know what, I'm actually going to try to get something out of it this time. Like, look, I struggled to learn to play guitar for 30 years. Literally for 30 years. I've been a vocalist in rock bands, country bands, punk bands, like blues bands, all of them. My whole life, from like 18 years old on, right? And now all of a sudden, my guitar player that I play with gave me 2 30-second videos, and I signed up for Guitars for Vets, and I'm gigging out on my own, doing acoustic sets and stuff like that. I'm writing my own music, all that. My first solo song that I wrote by myself completely is coming out this year. You know what I mean? Like, but it's all because you don't stop, right? What's working for you? Nothing. Let's do it again. What have you tried? Make a list of all the different things you've done. You know what I mean? They didn't work. Okay, let's do them again. Let's absolutely do it. Let's find different teachers this time. Because sometimes it's just the way that you're receiving it by who's giving it. You know what I mean? So, but it's repetition. It's just doing it over and over again. It's asking questions, probing. You know, I used my GI Bill and got a bachelor's in psychology. I was working on a master's in counseling and a master's in social work, and realized that a therapist's job is not to find the answers for you or give you the answers. A therapist's job is to probe and ask the questions that give you to self-discover the answers for yourself. Because once you do that part right there, once you go, oh, and you have those aha moments, those answers stick with you far longer than somebody just giving you the answers. You know what I mean? That's why I just like to expose, and sometimes exposing people to those things, right? Like Save a Warrior or Boulder Crest or, you know, Guitars for Vets or all these things. Just the exposure alone and standing by them so that they go, okay, he's got my back, right? I can be all in on this moment, right? I can give it. And then there it is. Now it's helping. So sorry, it was a really big answer for a...
Thanks. Can I throw out some comments before Nigel takes over? So when I was at my lowest, I had a process occur in my mind that I didn't realize at the time is an ancient Japanese philosophy called Ikigai. And I laid in bed thinking about, you know, I want to do something that I'm really good at, because that, you know, I think all of us, we don't want to do something for a living that we suck at. I also wanted to do something that I really loved. I was working in a job that I absolutely despised. I wanted to do something that made a difference in the world, that the world needed, and I also needed to make money. I'm not retired from the Army. I did do 9 years in the Army, but I'm not retired, so I needed a job, and I had a family and all that. And so that was a natural process that occurred in my mind. And it turns out it's this ancient Japanese philosophy. And I came up with answers. And the area that I struggled in the most was, what am I good at? And I needed to have the courage to go ask people around me what they thought I was good at. When I interact with you, what is it that you value from me? And when I got the answers to all of these things, it led me to want to do exactly what I'm doing at Boulder Crest. But I didn't know that Boulder Crest existed at the time. And when I started telling people, describing to people what I thought my life's purpose was, all of these opportunities started flying at me, and the Boulder Crest opportunity came as well. Um, I the first book I ever read from cover to cover was The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Absolutely the greatest book I've ever read. And in that book, it says over and over again, if you want something bad enough, all the universe will conspire to help you achieve it. So my question when it comes to purpose is, what do you want to do? What do you like or love doing that you're good at that the world needs? Because we're only of service if we're providing something that people need. Um, and I have a coach. I've been doing this work for a really long time, but I still am trying to grow, still trying to learn about myself. And I have this coach, and I told him one day that I was struggling with purpose, even though I work at Boulder Crest and I'm helping people on a daily basis and all of that. I still my personal purpose I don't fully understand. And he said, "Well, what if your purpose is just being authentically you?" And it sounds silly, but I reflected on it, and I told you I meditate. So I meditated on it for a couple of weeks. And what I found is that I don't know what authentically me means. And I think that's my purpose. My purpose is to understand me as deeply as possible. And there's this video that I absolutely love by Rabbi Tversky, and he talks about how a lobster grows. A lobster feels really uncomfortable, which is a stimulus for it to cast its shell off and produce a new shell. Well, I live by that code. Every time I feel uncomfortable, I cast my shell off. I make myself vulnerable. I put myself in a situation where I could potentially fail. And I try to be good enough at that thing so that it's no longer uncomfortable. Guitars for Vets and learning how to play the guitar is exactly that. I had a conversation with Nigel. I said, just the idea of having a guitar in my hand seems really uncomfortable. So I'm going to do it. So I signed up. And I don't regret a second of it. I don't know if I'm any better at it, but dang it, I grew. And I just, from a purpose perspective, I think the number one thing is to understand who you are and what it is you love to do, and then go do that. Find a way to do it. Whether you get paid to do it or you do it as a volunteer, it doesn't matter. Find a way to do the things you love.
Nigel, anything you wanted to say?
I think the biggest thing is it's really important for each of us to follow our own journey, in my opinion. And I think that's something that each of us has shared is we had a different journey of the exact path that we took. But what we all know is we're all on a journey together. Maybe those are parallel tracks off in the distance, but we're all headed towards the same point of light, the same positive outcome, which is to grow more each day. And I like that I had that thought on the heels of the lobster because I had never heard that before. And I could feel it as Joe was describing it of it's true. You outgrow your former self through all of these positive inputs, and growth can't happen without positive inputs. So when you're starting to feel like that limitation and you go, wow, this is uncomfortable, it's because you're venturing into uncharted waters and new territory. And it gets really exciting when you get comfortable with that process. And like Joe was saying, okay, I guess it's time to be vulnerable again and learn something new. And then you start to gain great fascination, I think, and enthusiasm for seeking out new things, whether that be something like my wife and I are getting ready to do. We've ordered it, it's here, and it's an oil painting kit for a date night where we can set up the easels side by side, and there's a video tutorial and it shows you. I'm not a painter, but it sounds like a lot of fun. Because if nothing else, the worst thing that happens by the end is my wife and I can look at each other's canvases and get a good chuckle. So no matter what comes, it's going to be a great time, and maybe it will be amazing. Regardless, I know the experience will be amazing. And that's the most important part, is that connection of doing it together and learning something new. She doesn't know how to do it either. So we're going to do it and figure it out. And that's very exciting for me. And especially as I start talking about it out loud, it's even more exciting than when we bought the kit. It's like now there's that anticipation and that build up for when we get the opportunity to do it, which is going to be this weekend. So I'm stoked.
Yeah, that's a whole TikTok theme. I don't know if you've seen that, but they each paint each other and then they do the reveal. And usually one spouse is like beautiful, and the other's a. So you'll have to video and let us know how that goes. Hey, what I loved about your answers about purpose is, in a lot of different ways, you all connected to kind of the primary reasons we were setting this up tonight. And it's using arts and music and nature and other things like that to help even discover your purpose. I mean, it really is that simple, and we don't have to overthink it. I guess with the time that we have left, what would be some practical things that you can have someone do to either start their post-traumatic growth journey or make sure they have and keep the momentum to keep growing?
I'll keep my answer short. Honestly, get up off the couch, make a decision to go do something, whatever it is. I don't care what it is. Just get up off. Well, I care what it is. I don't want you going to the bar and drinking all night. But get up off the couch and go do something positive to benefit yourself or someone else. Do something that's going to benefit you. Don't just go out and do something that's mind-numbingly dumb. Right? Go do something with purpose. And it doesn't have to be your purpose, but it has to have purpose. You know what I mean? Get up off the couch. Because sitting on the couch, again, growth doesn't start on the couch. It doesn't. It starts outside. Go do something somewhere else. Get out of your house. Get out of your isolation. Go do something. That's it.
I'm in total agreement, and I would say have a recognition that you don't in fact know everything. We've all heard the saying, you can't teach old dogs new tricks, and I've heard it a million times in the veteran community. I've said it myself. It's just the way I am. I'm not going to change. You're going to have to accept me for the way that I am. And the truth is, if you don't like the way that you are, you can change. And everything that we teach around post-traumatic growth it's thousands of years of wisdom. We didn't invent any of this. This is all universal wisdom. Everything Malachi has said, everything Nigel said, it's all universal wisdom. We've read about it. We've seen it in other people. We've experienced it ourselves. So it has to be true. And I would say, if you're going to sit on the couch, read a book. Don't sit on the couch and watch TV. The news is not going to teach you how to create a new life. The news is not going to help you be a better person. Social media is not necessarily going to do that. I love TikTok as well. Thanks for bringing it up, Paul, because there's a lot of educational content on there, YouTube and all of that. But educate yourself. Be open to the idea that you don't know the answer to everything. There's so much wisdom out there for us to explore. And then, to Malachi's point, go out and experience it. Once you learn it, go experience it. That's the first step.
And I think the only thing I would add to that, because like Joe, I agree with all the comments and discussion tonight. So many valuable, age-old and timeless lessons that, as Joe mentioned, we don't hold the corner on the market. These aren't unique thoughts that we magically, are like modern day Confucius and came up with deep thought. It was just we came to the same answer that people that have studied this and have experienced this and have reflected on it have come to for thousands of years. And so here we are validating through our own words and our own journey. And that's the great thing about it. There's no secret. The answer is right in front of us. And the only thing that I would add is it is a very good exercise that I like to embark on when I'm feeling frustrated with a lack of progress because I want to grow faster, is I look back, whether it be 6 months or a year, a fairly short period of time, but something more than just a week or a month. And I look back and I ask myself, are you better now than you were 6 months ago? And in what ways? And when I look at that, while yes, there are some things that maybe took a little step backwards, almost everything has taken at least an inch step forward. Growth is growth. Sometimes it's a foot, sometimes it's a mile. But as long as there's continued movement and forward progress, you're winning. And that's very encouraging. And I use that to give myself kind of a pep talk, if you will, when I'm feeling a bit down, as I'll reflect on, hey, I'm still here, I'm still alive. That means I'm stronger than I was every day before today. And what have I accomplished towards my goals? And I don't look at it as a glass half empty. I look at it as a glass half full, because I deliberately kept contributing to that investment in myself each day to get to where I am now. So I've already proven, in the sense that Joe framed it, those 7 days of being very intentional, mindful, purposeful, however you want to look at it, fueled me for a little bit longer. And maybe I backed off just enough where I ran out of a little bit of juice. All it takes is one more day to get me back on track and refocus. So that's something that I use to try to stay on track, because it's a journey, y'all. And some days you're winning, some days you're learning. But either way, you're still on the journey. If you're sitting here thinking about it, you're still making progress.
Well,
Awesome,
sometimes
gentlemen.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I say sometimes it's really hard to self-measure growth, and so sometimes, especially if you have a wife or you have a significant other, it's good to have those relationships where you can sit down and go, what have you noticed over the last couple of months? What growth or what step backs have you seen or noticed? Where areas do you think I should be working on? Because sometimes, again, it's hard looking in the mirror. It's hard to see your own growth, right? Like when you're losing weight, it's hard to see that you lost weight, but people around you, man, you look a lot thinner, but you don't see it, right? Because you're there in it every single day. So sometimes measurable growth can be difficult to discern without asking people in your peer group or your friends, family, things like that. So sometimes you may need to do that too, because you may not see the growth and somebody else does.
Awesome. Very, very valuable conversation. I think what we're going to do now is bring Tatiana on, and we'll get back to the Q&A, to some of your stories. That was fantastic. When we were putting this together, I thought it'd be kind of important to have music therapy. Has been something I always thought of from afar, that it was kind of magical, that you can take music, this totally subjective kind of creative thing, and have attached therapists to it, and then have it be good and healing and all that. So I kind of thought it'd be interesting to have Tatiana, with her background, kind of hear the conversation that we just had and do two things. Just kind of give us some general feedback that help us understand this connection of brain to creativity. And then maybe, since we're guitar playing fools, talk to us about how we can use our instrument.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for having me. This conversation has been incredible, really enlightening, emotional, and authentic. And I think that is something that I'm hearing. So a lot of these keywords that I'm hearing in this conversation are authenticity, vulnerability, intentionality, intentional engagement. And that's really what my role is as a music therapist, is like what Malachi has said, or like Joe said, the therapist's role is to, we give an elevator speech in music therapy. Music therapy is a clinical and evidence-based practice where we're utilizing music as the tool to achieve all of these emotional, physical, cognitive, etc. Growths that we're looking for. So my job is to provide you the tools and the space in order to find these opportunities that we're looking for. But that doesn't mean that you can't do that on your own as well. So something that I wanted to kind of speak with you on and really hone in on is that intentional engagement. That was something that, Malachi, you're really honing in on. And I think it is so important in the way that we approach our utilization of music, especially when we're using a new instrument or utilizing the guitar as a support system. It's really easy to grab the guitar, play through your chords, and that's it, right? But having that intentional connection with your instrument can be really helpful. So something that I wanted to show you all, if you feel like this might be appropriate still with the time that we have, is utilizing the guitar intentionally, and utilizing the guitar as a tool for emotional regulation as well. That was something that Joe mentioned. We need that space to meet us where we're at and guide us to that place that we need to be in order to move through these tough moments that we're having. So what I wanted to show you was a really easy chord progression on the guitar. I'm going to stand up so you guys can hear me and see me. Where we're going to be utilizing our instrument in an intentional manner. So as a music therapist, I always laugh because I work with veterans, and I hear veterans say, you know, oh yeah, my therapist tells me to do that deep breathing, that box breathing all the time, and I do it, and it's just boring, or I can't really get into it, right? And I see some of you smirking and smiling because I was there too, and I feel the same way sometimes too. Yeah, I'm breathing deep, but what is this doing for me? And so I think that whenever we're able to utilize our instrument as that anchor or as that safety blanket to connect with ourselves in those vulnerable moments or in those moments when we need to regulate ourselves, it can be really, really profound and provide a lot of insight from my experiences. So what I wanted to show you all was a very quick chord progression. So I see some of you with your guitars out. If you don't have your guitar out, grab it if you want, or just make some note of what I'm showing you. So I am utilizing that A minor shape, all right? I'm utilizing that A minor shape, but I'm not utilizing that A minor shape in the typical A minor way, right? So I'm bringing my A minor shape down to the 5th and the 6th fret. It should sound like this. All right, so that A minor shape on the 5th and 6th fret. And I'll angle this down a little bit so you guys can see me better. And then we're gonna slide up to the 3rd and 4th fret. All right, so I'll give you guys a little second to figure that out on your own. So we're going from the 5th and 6th fret with that A minor shape to the 3rd and 4th fret. And we're just gonna go back and forth on those two chords. You can do any sort of strumming pattern that you want. I really like to try and match my right hand with how I'm feeling in the moment. So if I'm feeling a little anxious, I might play it a little faster, right? Or if I'm feeling a little chill, using some finger picking. So this is where we're gonna start connecting with our instrument by playing our instrument in a way that is sort of mirroring how we feel, or giving us the space to feel how we want to feel, right? So if you're feeling really elevated, we can start playing some nice finger picking, taking a nice deep breath in, and then giving some space to hold that breath and let it out when you strum that 3rd and 4th fret. And then breathe back in on that 5th and 6th fret. Taking some nice intentional deep breaths. So in on the 5th and 6th fret. And then out. And what I like to do is start using my breath as my guide for my rhythm. So if my breath is starting to slow, then my right hand is going to start slowing down. So the reason I'm utilizing this chord progression, again, is to create kind of a safety blanket, that intentional space, but we also have something that's repetitive, right? We know what it's gonna sound like, we know what we gotta do, and then that's where we're able to start opening the opportunities for that vulnerability that comes in. So something that I want to kind of empower you all to do with this chord progression that you now have, 5th and 6th fret, A minor shape to the 3rd and 4th fret, try different rhythms with your right hand. Maybe try some finger picking that you haven't tried. Even if it sounds like crap, right? It doesn't matter. What matters is that you are utilizing this space to connect with yourself and utilizing this incredible tool to do that. So now, something that I'm going to challenge you to do as well is maybe start singing a little bit. So I know that that can be a really vulnerable thing for folks. And what's helpful about this chord progression, again, is repetition. We know what's going to happen. We don't need to worry about this part, and now we can just sing, right? So I'm just going to improvise something, and let's see how it goes. And maybe you'll join me and answer along with me as well. So. I'm showing people how to use their guitars intentionally. And I don't know what to sing, but hey, that's okay. Maybe I'll show you it's alright to try something new, and you can make mistakes and make some weird sounds too. And then you can bring it down, right? And take those deep breaths again. And if you notice, I have not stopped playing the same thing over and over, right? So I wanted to show you that again as a space to create a safety blanket, a comfort to do those vulnerable things. It can be really difficult to engage in something with intentionality if it's something that's new for you. So having that space, having those different easy to go to chord progressions can be helpful for that emotional regulation as well. Utilizing your breath and your physiological responses, matching them to the music, vice versa, can really help us with that self-regulation. So I hope that was helpful for you all. And there's so many other things that I want to talk about and to show you, but for time's sake, I will bring it back to the team. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Tatiana. Yeah, when I had a chance to meet Tatiana after we had set the agenda, we were talking, and that's what got us thinking maybe there's a Guitars for Growth 2 or a series that could come out of this whole idea of using music and arts as a way to look at post-traumatic growth. I did have a question for Joe. I know that in the chat there were some questions about Boulder Crest, and you talked about the phases and stages. Can you talk a little bit about what the programs are that Boulder Crest offers, and give us some idea of how vets could find that?
Absolutely. I put a link to Warrior Path in the chat. Warrior Path is for, I'm going to say combat veterans, but that's kind of a loose term in our world. I would say any veteran who's struggling with something substantial should apply to the program. It's a 90-day program where you spend the first 7 days on site at one of our facilities. It's a class of 8 people, and the first 7 days, it's like drinking from a fire hose. We're walking you through the process, and so the best way for you to learn it is to experience it. We walk you through the process and make sure that you leave understanding that all of your past experiences can provide you with gifts to help propel you into the future that you want to have. And then when you leave, you spend the rest of the 90 days living your life, experiencing these regulation practices, and engaged with your team and engaged with our staff. We're not a catch and release organization. We don't have you for 7 days and then forget about you. We have an app that you have lifelong access to the entire community of people who've gone through the program. But we do calls with the team every 2 weeks or so until the end of the 90 days, and then you're kind of self-sufficient with the calls. That's Warrior Path. We also have a family rest and reconnection program. So we own a place in Virginia, Bluemont, Virginia, and a place in Sonoita, Arizona. It's also a free program where you can bring if you're a combat vet, you can bring your family for free 2 to 7 nights a year. And it's like booking an Airbnb. You just don't put a credit card in. You have to get yourself there, and you have to bring your own food, but you have free access to the place for 2 to 7 nights, once per year. We also have a military and veteran teen retreat and Gold Star teens as well. So once a year, both in Virginia and in Arizona, we'll invite teenagers to come and have kind of an adventure weekend where we do a little bit of light teaching in post-traumatic growth just to help them with some life skills to help them thrive in life, not simply cope. And then we have our Struggle Well program is really oriented towards prevention and helping organizations to create programs and change cultures so that people don't leave their service thinking that they have to live a life of diminishment because of what they've experienced.
Awesome. Thank you. So before we bring Malachias on to share his gift as well, by the way, Tatiana, beautiful voice. That's gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Little work on the lyrics, but other than that, we got you. No, I'm just kidding.
Listen, I was being vulnerable, right?
You were, and I should appreciate it more. I'm sorry about that. Before I hand it off, though, I just kind of we wanted to end with a live song because, again, that's what we're all about. And it's really a powerful way to show kind of the theme of tonight. And that is how we can have a journey of post-traumatic growth that involves something as simple as wooden strings, something as simple as music and a guitar. But I think what I learned from our esteemed panel, there's two words that keep coming to mind, and they're kind of mirror images. It's isolation and it's connection. I talked a lot about the addictions field, and yes, we had tests. We had all sorts of urine tests and other ways to know if someone was abusing drugs. But by the time we took those tests, it was kind of too late. We needed something sooner. And that's why for so long, the addictions treatment community is very interested in if you're making your meetings and if you're talking to your sponsor, because that is two of the things that stop the isolation that happens when an addict starts to think about abusing drugs and then abuses drugs. And the opposite to that really is, it really is that connection. And that whole second pledge about my mission is to find my mission. It really is purpose or connection that really helps to bring purpose. I think there was a Simon and Garfunkel song that said, no one's an island. And so this whole idea of using music and art as one of the paths of connection is just very powerful. I mean, without connection, we really don't have purpose. We don't have acceptance. We don't have belonging. We don't have unity. In short, we don't have hope. So I really appreciate, I know it's kind of weird being the virtual guy because all of this is digital and I haven't been in the same rooms with any of you and breathed the same air, but this is still a very, very powerful connection. We hear from a lot of our veterans taking virtual lessons that it's given them the courage after they graduate to leave their house. So it's such a big confidence boost and really is similar to the movie that Nigel showed. All right, so I want to end on a high note. Malachias is going to sing Warrior's Garden for us. And there's a line in this song that just really, I think, is just resonating so well for tonight. And that is, the battle didn't end for me because I made it home. And that implies two paths. We're either going to grow or it's going to be stagnant. And I think after tonight, we're all going to grow, and we know how to do that. Malachias, why don't you end our evening for us? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. So I wrote this song with a fellow combat veteran friend of mine. His name is JT Cooper. JT was in Somalia during Black Hawk Down back in the early 90s. So if you've read the book or you've seen the movie, he was part of the 10th Mountain Division that went in to get the Rangers out after they got, shot down and pinned down. And he was with a group called the Lost Platoon. There's a documentary about it where they actually had the driver was speaking one language, the military was speaking one language, and the interpreter was speaking another language. So there was 3 different language barriers. So by the time you would say turn right, they'd be 2 blocks past the turn they needed. And so they ended up in a 16-hour, 18-hour firefight of their own, trying to make it back to the base. So I kind of sat down with him and I was like, hey, JT, I haven't written music in a long time. I haven't sang in a long time. I've been out of the Army for a while. And I know you do this for a living, but I would really like to write a song about all the things I'm doing, about my book, about my passion, about just everything. And I've never kind of written a song that way where it was like I had a focus for it. Because usually for me, I usually write to the music, right? So someone hands me a guitar line and says, hey, what do you think about this? And then lyrics start populating and it just happens, right? So this was the first time that I came up with an idea first and we started doing that. So this turned into my first release after the military, and it's the final song on my my debut CD. And the crazy thing is you know, I'm not your average Guitar4Vets graduate. Like when I went in, I could play a little bit, and I was already playing shows. And so when I went in, I was assigned a teacher that was just phenomenal. Just really just, and he kind of force fed me with a fire hose of information of like, look, just go with it and keep what sticks. And then we still, like to this day, we still talk, and he gives me ideas and tips and tricks. So this song is about my book. It's about my journey. It's about my path. It's about all the different things that, all of it. But the funny part is when, you know, as a veteran, when you listen to it, like a lot of veterans listen to it and they go, dude, it's my journey too. Like it's my song. So it's like, it's really more of like, it's an all of us thing. So, and it's called A Warrior's Garden. You might think my tears are weak. I don't give a damn. There are answers that I seek that make me who I am. Every day the sun comes up, keeps me driving on. The battle did not end for me, because I made it home. There are times my feet are tired, I must find my knees, and I call for resupply. Father, help me, please. There are 22 a day that choose not to survive, but I know inside of me something's still alive. In the garden where I lose myself, planting seeds of hope, a new life for myself. In the garden, watered with my tears, for all of those I've lost, all of those not here. In the garden, my warrior garden, my warrior garden. In the soul you can find peace. It just takes some times when you plant your thoughts of war. Helps to clear your mind. In the garden where I lose myself, planting seeds of hope, a new life for myself. In the garden, watered with my tears, for all of those I've lost, all of those not here. In the garden, my warrior garden, my warrior garden, my warrior garden.
Malachias Gaskin, everyone, thank you so much for that. That was awesome. Thank you, esteemed panel, and all of you that joined us for tonight. Appreciate you all. Thanks, Tom, for being our wingman, and you all have a great night.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.